Hello everyone, how are you guys doing? I hope you're all doing well and of course keeping safe during these times. I want to thank you guys so much for coming back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome. Please feel at home. My name is Nancy, and in this channel I talk about moving to the UK as a registered nurse. I talk about nursing, I talk about lifestyle, travel, food, and let's just say a little bit of everything out there. So feel welcome, and please remember to subscribe so you're notified of any video I upload and you won't miss anything. So today I wanted to share with you guys my story with the IELTS exam, and the reason for me to do this is because I have been talking to a lot of people who are still back in their home countries trying to do the IELTS exam. Some have taken it once, twice, some even thrice, and they have not achieved the required score and they feel like they just want to give up. So today I'll be sharing with you my story on IELTS, and please watch until the end because I've got some tips for you as well as recommendations on study materials. So let's talk about IELTS. By the way, I have already done a video on IELTS talking about the structure of the exam, what to expect, and I've talked a little bit about the 4 categories in there. So remember to check the video out if you want to have an idea. I'll put it in the iCards up here, and I'll also be putting a link in the description box below. And I'll also be doing another video on IELTS as well, and this one I'll be talking about the updates that have been made by the NMC as well as the accepted scores, so keep an eye out for that, and remember to subscribe if you haven't. I always talk to a lot of nurses who are planning to move to the UK. Some always ask about my experience here, the pros and cons of working in the UK, generally how life is, but most people nowadays are talking to me about the IELTS exam, and they feel like they've dedicated their time, they've used a lot of money, because as we all know that exam is not cheap, and then they get frustrated at the end and they just want to give up. They don't want to do the exam anymore and they want to give up their whole dream of moving to work in the UK. My whole point of doing this video is to tell you guys that you are not the only one who's failing this exam once, twice, or even thrice. From talking to a lot of people and from seeing a lot of nurses, I think it's safe to say that the CBT exam and the OSCE exam have a higher first time pass rate as compared to the IELTS exam. I don't understand why, because most of us are good English speakers. For some of us, we started studying English since we were, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old. In my hands I hold my 4 IELTS certificates. So the number of times I've done IELTS in my life is 4 times. Okay, and 3 of those times was me trying to process my papers to come to the UK as a registered nurse. So my story with IELTS dates back to 2015. That sounds like it was ages and ages ago, but the first time I did IELTS was in 2015. I think that was in July, and that's because I was moving to Sweden, and a friend of mine who was there knew that I was planning to apply for uni when I got there, and I was going to apply for uni in Finland. So the person advised me to do the IELTS exam while I was still in Kenya, because I was familiar with where the exam was to be done, and somehow it was cheaper and quicker for me to do the exam there and get my results before I went to Sweden. And I did exactly that. So I had no idea that I had to study. I knew that there were exams people were doing before they moved abroad to uni, and it was mostly people moving to the US. So for me, I just booked the exam, paid, showed up, did my exam, and to me it felt like some simple primary or high school English exam. And then I got my results. So the results were, in listening I had 7.5, reading 7, writing I had 6, speaking I had 7, and the overall score was 7. And according to Finland, or according to the Finnish system, this was okay, and I was able to apply for university with this score. So 2 years after that, I decided to move to the UK, and of course one of the requirements was for me to do an English exam. And again, I really didn't pay much attention to, you know, trying to find out what was required of me, or did I need to study for the exam. I just booked like I did the first time, showed up for the exam, and my results were listening I had 9, reading 7, writing I had 6.5, and speaking 8, with an overall score of 7.5. I had failed according to the NMC, because at this point they needed us to get 7 in all the 4 categories. If I did the exam like this time, where they've reduced the writing score to 6.5, I would have passed. But unfortunately for me at that time, the minimum score was 7 in every category, so I needed to resit the exam. I was starting to look for agencies to help me to move to the UK, and I found my agency, and they were advising me that I've got 2 choices, and one of them was to pay for a remark or to redo the exam, and then I could combine both exams if I actually got a 6.5 in writing again, and they said that would be accepted. I was kind of paranoid because I did not know anyone who had paid for a remark and their marks were increased. I mean, it was only 0.5, but I opted to redo the exam again, which was a really bad idea because the second time I got a listening 9 again, so my listening was very good. Reading was 8.5, an improvement from the previous one, and then writing was even worse. This one was 6, and speaking was 7.5, and overall score was 8. Now this one was worse because there's no way I could combine both of these tests. Yes, they were taken within 6 months of each other, but my writing score in the second test was 6, which was unacceptable by NMC. I was frustrated. I was really frustrated, but I was determined, so I was ready to redo this exam even 10 times if that's what it took for me to pass my IELTS exam. So I decided to put more effort into understanding what my problem was. Why wasn't I passing this exam? I did not understand why, because like I said, for us, especially in Kenya, you start writing compositions when you're young, essays, and you do poetry, you do literature. I tried to understand why wasn't I getting, you know, the proper or the required marks. I concentrated on the writing part instead of like grammar and vocabulary and stuff like that, and I used a lot of online materials, and that really helped me to understand the structure of the exam. I booked my exam and I went back, so the results were not as good as I expected, but at least I had the required marks to move on to the next point. My score was in listening, the marks dropped. They were 8.5, reading 7, writing was 7, speaking was 7. The overall score was 7.5, which was good. I did not care if I had a 9 or an 8.5. All I needed was a 7 and I was good to go. People see me making all these videos, people see other nurses who are already working here, and they think that most of them did, you know, the first time and they passed. Don't get me wrong, there are people who actually just booked the exam, they didn't study, they went and they passed. But for most of us, that's not the case. Some of us had to redo and then redo again, study, work hard in order for us to pass. So if you really know what you want, if you're willing to put in the work, if you're willing not to give up, then you will definitely make it. So please guys, please, if this is what you really want, don't give up. Tip number 1, understand the structure of the exam and understand what the examiner expects you to do. Tip number 2, if you have done this exam first time, maybe second time, and you failed, try to understand what your weak point is and then work on it. For me, my weak point was the writing part, which I think is a big problem for a lot of people. So once you know what the problem is, then just go online, because there are a lot of materials out there that could help you solve your problem. So find your weak point and then work on it. And also, when you're working on your weak point, don't neglect the other parts of the exam, because they are also important, and the more you practice, the more you get better at it. Tip number 3, do not book your exam before you understand what the exam is all about. So once you go online, once you start studying and preparing for your exam, when you feel you're ready, then I think that's the right time for you to book for the exam. But don't give yourself too much time, because sometimes they have like a month or 2 months waiting time. So yeah, just go check how much time you need to wait and then start preparing. Once you feel you're ready, book the exam and you'll be good to go. Tip number 4, practice, practice, practice. Like I said, the more you practice, the more you get better at it. So practice, revise, use all the online materials. Like I said, there are so many guys out there. So please go look for them. Practice, practice, practice. And tip number 5, which is the whole idea of this video, do not give up. Don't be the kind of people who give up. If this is what you actually want, you will not give up. But if you're comfortable wherever you are and you feel like you've done the first time and you really don't want to do it another time, that's fine and it's your choice. But if you know that this is what you really want, then do not give up. So people are always asking me about study materials. They say I keep talking about study materials which are out there, but they want me to be specific about it. So I'll try and be specific about the ones that I used, but keep in mind that there are hundreds and hundreds of study materials on the internet. There are YouTube videos, there are blogs, there are apps, so you can just go Google and choose the ones you want. But to be specific about the ones I used, number 1, IELTS. So there's a YouTube channel for IELTS, and there is also a blog or a web page, and on this channel, the videos that are there are like 4 years old, but they're really good. For me, they helped me to understand the structure of the exam and what is expected of me, especially in the writing part. And when you go to her website, there's a lot of essays, a lot of examples, and also practice questions on listening and reading and writing, like each category. Another one I was using was IELTS Buddy, and I think I used this one mostly for listening and reading. So they also have a YouTube channel, and you're going to find a lot of useful materials. So another thing that people do is buy books and use them to study. I never bought any IELTS books, but there are people who advise others to buy because they bought it themselves and they found the books to be helpful. So if you wish to try that out, then you can definitely do. Another one is apps. I think there are several apps on how to pass IELTS or how to get band 7 or band 8 in IELTS. There are so many apps, and I'm sure if you go to your app store and just type IELTS, you can get a lot of study materials there. Most of these apps are free to begin with, and then if you wish to pay for them to get more materials or advanced levels, then you can definitely do that if you want. There are a lot of study materials up there, and you just have to choose the one you want. There are other people who actually opt to go for IELTS training, and there are several people offering IELTS training. I have spoken to some people who have gone through trainings, and they feel that the training has helped them because they got to receive one-on-one training and guidance on how to do the exam, what is expected of them, and all that. So there's one I recommend, and that is IELTS Training by Kenyan Nurse. They provide you with IELTS training materials and offer online coaching and training at your convenience. I have spoken to some people who have gone through this training, and most of them have passed through first time. So I do recommend it if you guys are willing to pay for it. So just contact them through the WhatsApp number, and then you can discuss on how it's going to work for you. That's all I had for you guys in this video. I hope that this video has been helpful to you. Feel free to share this video with all other other nurses out there. Please keep an eye out for the next video on IELTS, which I'll be talking about the updates by NMC and the current accepted scores. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.